So the Stanley Cup Finals finished last night.
As we all thought it would. A lot of people were predicting a sweep.
I distinctly
Montreal,
remember you putting on there Habs in 7
yeah,
on
my
your Instagram story.
I was absolutely hyped after that Game 4 win.
Yeah.
Now, did I believe it in my heart that Montreal would come back? I don't know if it was more desire or genuinely believing that because Tampa just outclassed them. You realize this series was over in Game 3. I believe that was the game Montreal put up 3 goals, and it was the first time in the entire playoffs they put up 3 goals and lost. Tampa put up 6 that same night. Carey Price, at the beginning of this series, as great as he's been overall in the playoffs, he wasn't Carey Price. Vasilevsky was the better goalie. When that happens, there was no shot for them to win this series. They went down. Had they not gone down 3-0, they would have had a shot. But
it's a shame that, and I it may be exaggerating a bit, but Carey Price is going to fade off in terms of the amount people are talking about him after this.
Well,
if he won the cup, he's considered the greatest goalie until he retires.
Oh, of course, no question, and he'd be up there in greatest of all time. I'm not saying, but that would be a Dominic Hasek kind of run, and Dominic Hasek's arguably the greatest goalie of all time. For the past 2 seasons, Carey Price has been talked about as the greatest in the playoffs, the same way people talk about McKinnon as the greatest in terms of current players because of their playoff performances. Now, Montreal has an offseason to look forward to, a transition in how the divisions are going to be aligned. They're going back to the Atlantic. It's looking tough. They're going to be competing with Tampa Bay again, Boston, Toronto, Florida. Nobody knows what Buffalo's going to look like. Nobody's going to know what Detroit looks like. They'll probably be bottom feeders, and Ottawa's on the rise.
I think we all know that both of those teams are going to be bottom feeders.
But you have 6 teams that Montreal's going to be competing with, and to talk about Carey Price fading, there's potential for that, but if he is the greatest goalie of this generation, he'll continue to carry his team to the playoffs. Montreal now has the depth to support him, which he hasn't had in years past. He's not going to be as told. Now we'll have to see what they do in terms of a backup, but
it certainly was. If Montreal was going to do it, this was the year to do it. Because it does get a whole lot more uncertain now that the league goes back to a sense of normalcy.
32 teams, though. Things are going to even out. With the structure Montreal plays, I don't think them losing a piece is going to hurt as much.
No.
But they got put in a spotlight the same way Vegas did in 2018. Where they overachieved. And the game they played has been exposed. All 30 teams that weren't in were watching this, and they're all going to have a book on how to beat Montreal. So they're going to have to make some changes and hopefully make some improvements, whether that's their young guys stepping up. They do have a lot of vets that hopefully their decline is put off. Well, we'll see with Montreal. The story is, though, there are a lot of stories that can come out of this. Patrick Maroon is a single-man dynasty, winning 3 in a row.
Something about guys named Patrick McCaw, Patrick Maroon, 3 straight championships. It's
being just like very much role players. You also have Corey Perry back-to-back. I think he's going to get a job. A side note, I think one thing that hurt Montreal was relying so much on Corey Perry and not having guys like Brendan Gallagher score.
There were moments where you thought that there were a couple moments where he'd score and you're like, okay, the monkey's off his back. He should be able to move forward and excel. And then it just never came to that. He couldn't string anything together.
And I think those were parts of why they couldn't go too far, is they didn't have the offense to keep up with Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay had defense that could match Montreal's. They had a goalie that could match Montreal's. It's left on the forward group, and although Montreal's a good and deep forward group, they don't have the offense to compete at that level. How they beat Vegas, well, again, they beat them on forward depth, but not top-end talent. Is the reality of it. Now, for Tampa Bay, filthy riches in that organization from drafting, of course.
I knew this series was over before it even started. I knew Montreal could not compete with the juggernaut that Tampa is.
It was tough because you saw what they did to Vegas.
Yeah.
The difference between Tampa and Vegas is really just having a center core.
Yeah.
That's what Tampa has that Montreal hasn't really have to go up against, right? Winnipeg was missing Scheifele. Mm-hmm. Toronto was missing John Tavares. Yeah. Now you're facing Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, and Anthony Cirelli.
Yeah.
Yanni Gourde was fantastic down the middle. They haven't had to compete with anything like that.
Yeah.
Again, they have one of the two best goalies in Vasilevsky.
Yeah.
They have the best defenseman in Victor Hedman.
Yeah.
Ryan McDonough was the number one defenseman in New York, as he should have been and as he can be.
Yeah.
So you have two number one defensemen. Sergachev, who should be that one day.
Yeah.
Even now, he's not too bad.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about...
We haven't talked about the forwards at all.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the second Conn Smythe or whoever, the guy who plays second for Conn Smythe and Nikita Kucherov.
Yeah.
30 plus points, was it? Ridiculous. Yeah. You have to talk about Goudreau, Coleman, Killorn, and the guy who keeps that point and Kucherov line intact in Palat.
Yeah.
Filthy team, top to bottom.
Like it's, I don't know. And the big qualm, and I know a lot of people have brought it up, the fact that Dougie Hamilton brought it up. Mm-hmm. They were $18 million over the cap.
Yeah.
And that's not the biggest issue. I have an issue with people bringing up, comparing this team to the 2013 Cup-winning Hawks team. Mm-hmm. Because they did something similar with Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
However, if Tampa Bay just did this with Steven Stamkos, and it was just Stamkos that they were... Because Stamkos was probably healthy enough he could have come back for the last couple games of the season, mm-hmm. but they thought... with his injury past and the injuries he's had this year, let's just keep him fresh for the playoffs. I don't have an issue with that. Yeah. It was the same thing with Kane. Kane had just come back from a big injury. Let's hold him out. Let's make sure he's fresh. They played during the season. Mm-hmm. But for Nikita Kucherov to not play a second in the regular season and to come out game one, first round against Florida, guns ablaze in the way he did... It just shows that this guy was healthy and they manipulated it. And I personally don't. It's not, and this isn't a knock against Tampa. They're just they're using the cards that were dealt to them. Mm-hmm. However, I have an issue, and this is just from a league standpoint. Something needs to be done that you can't hold a guy, a Hart Trophy winner, in Nikita Kucherov, out for the entire season when the way he was playing, he was probably healthy at least a month before he came back.
There were rumblings that he was ready to come back, I would say February, March.
Yeah.
Maybe even April. Either way, the issue is that's $9.5 million. What do you do?
Yeah.
As a team, because they didn't prepare to have him at all for the season.
No.
Right? They said the earliest he should come back is playoffs. Now, maybe they were saying that knowing that he would be ready before.
Yeah.
And when he came back, he didn't look like a guy who wasn't ready to play. So, he was definitely going through some training.
Yeah.
The only issue I have with that is you can't just make $9.5 million to bring this guy up, disappear.
And I'm not saying you can't. I'm not blaming Tampa Bay for it. Again, they're just, they're playing with the cards that were dealt to them. There's nothing that, if I were in their spot, I probably would have done the same thing. Yeah. I just think from a league standpoint, this is if I were to
what do you do? Right? Like the only option they have is they can send down Johnson because he wouldn't get claimed.
I'm not saying that they do anything. I'm just saying the league needs to look into.
But I'm not saying Tampa. Like in general, what can be done in a situation like that? Right? You can't just make $9.5 million disappear.
No, I just think there needs to be a rule in place that if someone does not play during the regular season and does not contribute to getting them to the playoffs, they should not be in the playoffs.
Okay, so would the same apply in like a Cale Makar situation where they brought him up just for the playoff run out of college?
I don't think they should do that either.
Okay.
I just think it's one of those things where I think the playoffs should be a representation of the standings in the regular season.
Yeah.
And I think that to have a guy like Kucherov not play at all, because let's be honest, Tampa Bay is still a juggernaut with or without Kucherov.
They won the cup without Stamkos last year. So,
That's the thing. They would it have been as much of a cakewalk for them?
No.
Probably not.
No.
But
they probably would have lost the Islanders series.
They probably could have. And Kucherov played a huge role, but that's what I'm saying. You know, how does a team really, how does any other team they're playing against really prepare for that?
Yeah.
When he doesn't play during the regular season?
All the teams knew Kucherov was coming back. All the fans knew he's coming back for playoffs.
I just think that the playoffs should be a representation of what happens during the regular season.
I'm just kind of pushing your point. That's the one, is everybody knew Kucherov was coming back.
Yeah.
Along with that, well, that's really the only point you need. Every team going in knew the team they were playing. They knew what the rosters were going to look like. For Dougie Hamilton to come out and say what he said, yeah, I understand you're frustrated, but had they won, that wouldn't even be a point. Columbus beat a similar Tampa Bay team. Arguably, the Tampa Bay team on paper was better.
Yeah.
Back in 2019. Mm-hmm. That team Columbus beat. That was a 62-win Tampa Bay Lightning, and they were swept by Columbus, who was well under them in terms of salary.
Yeah.
So in that context, money means nothing, because what they assembled, you can't just throw money at guys. Even when there wasn't a cap. The Rangers would do it, Leafs, Montreal, the big market teams would do it. They don't win cups. They didn't win cups. You have to have a cohesive unit, and that's what Tampa Bay had, and that's what, even when they lose all these guys, you're going to see it again. They're going to be back in the playoffs, and they're probably going to remain a contender.
Yeah.
Because they have a good system along with top-tier talent. Yeah. They're a better version of Montreal, who's a better version of the Islanders. Yeah. Right? So that's two teams. Oh, yeah. Right, they're two good playoff teams that Tampa Bay just outclasses. Yeah, they deserve to be where they are. They earned this cup. Anybody that says otherwise in terms of caps, they're just salty.
No, I'm not
saying you're salty.
No, they deserve the cup because they played. Because at the end of the day, you still have to win the games, and they went out and they won the games. Yeah, and the finals may have been a cakewalk for them, but up until then, they went to 7 games against the Islanders. Florida held the lead at one point in that series against them.
And I do like your point in, if Stamkos and Kucherov came back like slow, then we understand. Yeah. But they came out and
it's just one of those things where you're like, okay,
Kucherov could have won the Conn Smythe.
Because it's just one of those manipulation things that, again, you can't blame Tampa for it. The league allows this. Yeah. I just find it funny how when they had that lockout in 2000, where they didn't play the 2005 season. Mm-hmm. It was all because they were introducing a salary cap, and they were trying to make the league more fair. Yeah. And then this happens, and it's like, okay,
is this?
I think it's just one of those things.
Kucherov was out for the entire season. It's not Tampa Bay's fault. They were still good.
No, and
without their heart winner, it's like if Edmonton loses their heart winner, they're not making the playoffs.
No, and I get that. They're a very well-built team. Yeah. They have a very cohesive unit, like you said. But I'm just saying, so someone's got, I'm not saying that there has to be a rule change. I'm not saying that I'm right, but it's just something that
it's something to look into. I agree. But it's tough because there's so many variables that you have to kind of consider to rule out. Yeah. There's so many things to look at. Like, you can't bank on one of your star players being out. No. And not a lot of teams will make the playoffs when their best player's out. So navigating around that and finding a rule that's fair and that can be consistent.
Yeah, no, I get that. But
yeah.
It's definitely something to look into, whether or not they should change something. Mm-hmm. Again, it's not up to me. I'm not saying that I'm the be-all, end-all.
Yeah, the one issue I have with that is injuries. Let's just say it goes down to the wire. Can you still not bring in a guy who hasn't played for your team, or like AHL call-ups and this and that?
Well, if it's one of those things where it's continuous, like there has to be little sub-rules in there that if you exceed a certain amount of injuries, that's a different story. But for a Tampa team that seemed to be so healthy to then say, okay, we're third in our division and here comes Kucherov, that it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, like someone's got to look into this.
I have no idea what you do. That's fair. and that can be a consistent rule.
I just find it funny how the NHL has the hardest cap of any league.
Yes.
And this can still happen.
Playoff time, anybody could have done that.
And I'm not saying. I'm just saying that something's got to. I think
this
something
can
has
happen
to
again for another team.
Yeah,
it's not. It's fair. They didn't cheat. Nobody cheated. This is a legitimate championship. They've gone back to back.
It's completely legit. You can't blame Tampa. They won the games. They did what they had to do, and they did what was within the rules. Tampa Bay was dominant. Montreal just continued to struggle to score. Their defensive, even look last night, they only lost 1-0.
This is the first time they played a team with better defense, or that could match them.
That could match them defensively. So then they really had to come out offensively, and Montreal just wasn't built to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that Montreal is going to address.
Hopefully.
And both these teams are going to need to do some.
We're going to talk about it later, but one thing I hope is that they both. Well, Tampa Bay's forced.
Yeah.
To make changes, but Montreal, I think, just needs to make adjustments and beef up,
especially with the division
realignment
coming. So
Canadian division. I mean, the fact that they were almost bettered by Vancouver is a little scary.
Yeah,
in the regular season. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens. So that'll do it for our Stanley Cup recap. If you like the video, give it a like, subscribe so you don't miss any of our other uploads there. Comment down below any of your thoughts on the Stanley Cup Finals. And with that, we'll see you in our next video. Peace.